Hello, everyone. This is Sincere, a teacher Sincere's channel, and welcome. So, this is another impromptu video that I did not have any plans to make, but what ran across my timeline on YouTube this evening was a video on TRT World, which is the English language network in Turkey. Was a report from South Korea. And the report dealt with a young teacher who had committed suicide. And apparently, there's been a wave of suicides by teachers in Korea. Now, why? Are they going through the same type of chaos that is going on in the schools here in the United States? Chaos that's been going on now for several decades. Not quite, but it could fester into that. What is happening apparently in Korea is that students have gotten so entitled and rebellious that if a teacher reprimands them, they will scream it's abuse. And then after that, they will go to the parents, and then the parents will complain and then file lawsuits against the teacher. So you cannot discipline the kids because you can't even say anything, apparently, in Korea, according to this report, or students will scream it's child abuse. And I'm not on the ground, I'm not in a Korean classroom, I don't know. I can only vouch for when I was teaching, when I went to school here in the United States, when I was substitute teaching, because I did that for a good while after I decided to get out of the regular classroom, because I did not want to be chained to the classrooms the way things had become in the schools. And things have been bad in in American public schools for since I was a child. I mean, it just depended on where you lived at. But when I changed from elementary school to middle school, it was just a total shock and to the system, because I when I went to middle school, and this was back in the early 70s. Yeah, because I started elementary school in 1968. When I changed over to sixth grade and went to middle school, I had never been around seeing kids that were using profanity. And this was in the early 70s. This was before movies had gotten so where they just say anything and do anything in movies. I mean, it already had started. Things had started with movies in the 70s, but it was out of control. The school where I went was a mixture. It was at that time, the public schools in my town, they had integrated, and the schools were like 50-50 white and black. So the school was a mixture of middle class whites and uh, tiny, very tiny minority of blacks that were middle class, almost very few of us. And the rest were African American children that came from housing projects or very low income areas. And it was terrible. It was terrible. There were fights on regular between, it was black girls fighting. Only thing the teachers had in their arsenal then, teachers at that time were able, teachers had a little bit more autonomy, a lot more autonomy here back then than what they do now. There was still corporal punishment. Didn't help a lot, but it helped somewhat. Students could be suspended. Now they cannot be suspended. Um, uh, Even back then, there were parents, if the child got in trouble, they would side with the child. Okay. Um, Another thing too, that we had more African American teachers in the school, and some of them were quite strict. Some of them were not dealing with any nonsense. And of course, they would get labeled as mean, but some of the teachers that were labeled as mean were some of the best teachers. Okay, because they were serious about what they did, and they did not deal with nonsense. But now, because of how the here in the United States, how the government has structured things, and the boards of education and the state boards of education have structured things over the years, particularly starting in the 1990s. Teachers are sort of just left alone to be out there to just be treating like garbage. That's it. And I would like to show the video, but I'm going to put the video of the report from Korea, South Korea, in the link, and I'm also going to put the link to a channel called Teacher Therapy. It's run by a young African American woman, and she does videos interviewing teachers that are going through, teachers that have quit teaching here in the United States, teachers that have moved on to teaching in other countries. She talks about her the challenges she went through teaching at both public and private schools here in the United States, and how she got out of the profession. But the teaching profession, depending on where you are, it's awful. It is a nightmare. It affects teachers' health. I haven't heard about teachers committing suicide here in the United States, but they probably are. There are probably some teachers that have been so traumatized that they've killed themselves. You can look on YouTube, and I will put maybe one or two other links besides Teacher Therapy's channel. There are teachers doing talks about how they have been traumatized, no support. There are reports of not only the teachers, but principals being attacked in fights, principals and teachers being hospitalized because of children going insane in the classroom. Um, Also, there was something else that I wanted to very much mention in this video, in this talk, and I'm trying to make this talk short. I'm going to try to keep it under 15 minutes. Um, but there was one young African American woman on her channel. She talked about how it became so much for her, too much for her, that she just walked out one day. She just walked out and quit. She did not even give them a 2 weeks notice. She walked out because she said her blood pressure had gotten stroke level. And she said they contacted her and asked her, why did she walk out? Just leave. And she said, I will be dead and you will have hired someone else. And it's like, she said, I did this for self preservation. I will be dead and you will have hired somebody else and it won't even matter. Things really started going down for the teaching profession. It's been going down for, I would say, 50 years. Now, in my parents' day, um, teachers were respected. In the African American community, teachers were respected because, in fact, um, after uh, after slavery and during Reconstruction, one of the first professions that some African Americans went into that was open back then, because it wasn't a lot of professions back then, but what they went into was teaching, because some of them wanted so much to lift up the heads of their people. In slavery, African American people could not, it was illegal for them to be able to read and write. But there were some slave owners and people that broke the law. Not to a large scale, but there was a tiny, minute minority that did do it. Okay. But the thing, but these were people that wanted to really lift up the heads of African Americans. And there were also white people too that helped start schools. These were white people that were in the abolitionist movement. And teaching was held in high esteem. Teachers were very well respected in my parents' generation. My father and my mother used to talk about their teachers, their principals. They had a lot of respect for a lot of their teachers. There were always some teachers that did bad things, but teaching was held in high esteem. It was a respected profession. What really started happening, I think, in the 1990s was the media got in on the game. And the media, I don't care what people say, okay, particularly those that are just adore the media, that thinks that the media is their friend and a source of information and education. The media is the enemy. And I'm going to tell you why. I believe starting in the 1990s that the media started a concerted effort to really destroy the teaching profession. Because what they did, I remember there were reports like almost weekly of young teachers, young female white teachers that were basically pedophiles, were having relationships, sexual relationships with their students. And one of the biggest one was Mary Kay Letourneau. Mary Kay Letourneau was a married teacher, had children, and she started having an affair with one of her students who was 14 years old. I think she was in her early 30s at the time. She was married and had kids. She actually got pregnant by her student. It was really, really twisted. She died a few years ago. She ended up marrying that student. She did later when he got. She waited for him to get to be an adult. She basically did sort of like what the president of France, Emmanuel Macron, with his teacher, his wife. His wife was his teacher. She was a married woman, and she started having, I don't know whether she had an outright sexual relationship with him, but she started fooling around with him. So there were these weekly, almost monthly, sometimes weekly reports of teachers having relationships, getting in trouble, being prosecuted, getting fired for having relationships with their middle school and high school male students. And they made it look like this was just across the board happening. Now, in everything, you're going to have some bad apples, as we say. The old saying, there's, one bad apple can spoil. It's really true. The old sayings, people don't take the old sayings serious anymore. We really need to get back to the old proverbs. But the old saying, there's old saying, one bad apple will spoil the whole bunch. And it will. All you need is one bad apple. I've been in a classroom as teacher when I was a classroom teacher and here in the States. I had a couple of incidents in Turkey. Okay, couple of incidents, but generally in Turkey, I don't know how it is now, but I had a couple of incidents with a couple of students in Turkey. But generally, their classmates would get them in check, and these were like maybe there was an incident with this boy and this girl that were both just finished high school, and they cut up a little bit in the class, and their peers stopped it. They put it in check. Okay. And I might have had one or two other incidents, but generally they would stop it. Now, I don't know what the climate is like now in Turkey because things are really changing fast around the world and things are not changing for the better. Okay. I'm shocked personally about this happening in Korea because Asian culture, what I don't know, but a lot of times in Asian culture, it's like following rules and respect and some Asian culture. I can't say all of Asia because Asia is a huge continent, which even includes parts of Russia. But anyway, it's just shocking, and so they reported about Mary Kay Letourneau for years. She was fired, she was prosecuted, and she went to prison, and then eventually when she got out of prison, she married her student, and then they I think she had another child with him, and then she died a few years ago of cancer. She didn't live long, but chaotic lifestyles. I think they push chaotic lifestyles because they understand. I think these governments and medias, these Western government media, pushes these chaotic lifestyles because this is a way to cut your life short. If you live these chaotic lifestyles, a lot of times you're gonna end up with poor health. A lot of times, very poor health, or not gonna live too long. I mean, this is you see it a lot. I mean, you might not like that being said, but if you do observation of this kind of thing in life with people, this happens a lot. That's one reason some of my classmates are dead. I'm 61, and some of them have been dead for quite a while. So they've died young. But yeah, I'm gonna put the links in the description, uh and I think what needs to be done is parents need to understand that you have all these little strange ideologies, and for a lot of people, it's basically monkey see, monkey do. Okay, what other people do, they don't think they go along with everybody else is doing. But when they have these little platitudes and slogans, oh, my child is my best friend, and you are a parent. You have a responsibility as an authority figure. I'm not saying dictator, but an authority figure to keep that child in check. Okay. Parents are so lax now that when I go to the stores, I went to Dollar Tree the other week. I usually don't shop at night, but every once in a while there's something might come up and I might have to go out and shop after dark. But it's pretty safe around here where I live. But the glare of the lights, I don't like to be out there late because of the car lights with the new LED. It's rough for my eyes. But I went to Dollar Tree and I was just shocked. They had this thrown stuff all over the floor, and I don't think the adults, it's the kids. And if you go out shopping, the kids are running wild. I don't care if they're white children, Hispanic children, you got to say Hispanic children, which is not correct, but from Central and South America, black children, they're running wild. You will see it just running wild in the store, and running around with bikes, and I mean, the stuff just yeah. So a lot of parents, they don't know how to parent. They just it's a full-time job to be a parent. Okay, that's why I'm all for women getting education, but I'm not against women being housewives, but I feel that women ought to get their education before they marry, because that's a foundation that you can fall back on. If a man leaves you, man cheats on you, man dies, that's something you can fall back on. You have an education and you have those credentials. But a lot of parents now, I don't care whether they have education or not, they don't want to do the job of parenting because it's a lot of work. And it's easier to let a child run wild. It's easier to, if the teacher says your child is a problem or reprimands your child, it's easier to deal with that child. A lot of parents don't want their kids pouting. They want to just, hand them, pacify them, give them what they want so they don't see them pouting, whining, throwing a temper tantrum. And that's not the way to go. You have got to be an authority figure with child. You're not your child's friend. You need to be an authority figure. There should be love and respect there, and authority. You have to put all of them there. And it's a lot of work. And a lot of people don't want to do it now. People also are very tired because we live in a world where just about only thing that seems to matter now is money. And people, it's hard to make ends meet. We have inflation worldwide, and people are tired. And it's easy, when you come home and you're tired, you just don't feel like dealing with your kids' problems, or your kids whining, or your kids wanting the next thing. But I want this because all my friends have it. You just don't feel like it. So I can understand some of the problems like that with parents, but you have to understand, if you are a parent, that you cannot let your child have their way. You need to be an authority figure, not your child's buddy. Okay. And it's a lot of work, but I've gone over 15 minutes. I'm going to end it here. I'm going to put the links in the description so you can look at these things and look at teacher therapy's channel, because a lot of times, particularly people from other countries, when I tell them about what's going on in the schools here, people hear about the school shootings, but they don't know about teachers being attacked, kids throwing chairs, principals being injured, fights, just terrible goings on in the schools. Kids walking up and down the hall, 4-letter words, every other word, every just language peppered with 4-letter words. They don't know about it. And so yeah. But I'm going to end here because this video has gone entirely too long. I just wanted, this was, I saw the video. It was very much on my mind, and I want to make some commentary about it and what's going on, since I am an educator and I have been in the line of fire. Okay. But I got out. All right. So I'm going to end here. Thank you for listening to my video. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something new. So this is Sincere Ray. Until next time.